On a cold February morning in 2008, in a small village hidden among the rocky hills of Bosnia and Herzegovina, hundreds of people gathered to pray. They didn't come for fame or spectacle. They came because they believed that in this place, the Mother of God had been appearing for decades, calling the world back to faith. The place is called Medjugorje. For more than 25 years, it had been a name spoken with both wonder and controversy. To some, it was a beacon of hope. To others, just another rumor of miracles. But for those who climbed its dusty paths with rosaries in their hands and tears in their eyes, it was sacred ground. Every day, pilgrims arrived from every corner of the world, walking barefoot up the hill of apparitions, whispering Ave Maria under their breath. They came with photos of loved ones, letters folded in pockets, and hearts full of questions. Some came seeking healing, some came seeking peace, and some came simply to see, to feel, to believe. That winter morning, February 24th, 2008, was no different. The sky was clear, and the air was calm, one of those days when the silence almost feels alive. Nobody could have imagined what was about to happen. As the pilgrims prayed, time seemed to slow down. The rhythm of the rosary echoed softly, and the light of the sun grew warmer on their faces, though no one noticed yet. It had been years since the first reported apparitions in 1981. Stories had spread of visions, conversions, and healings. But something else had also been whispered about for years, the so-called miracle of the sun. Old pilgrims spoke of it like a legend. They said that sometimes, when the Virgin Mary appeared, the sun would behave strangely, spinning, changing colors, even drawing shapes in the sky. Skeptics laughed, but others swore they saw it with their own eyes. And though cameras rarely captured anything, the stories never stopped. Still, no one expected this quiet February day to become one of the most discussed moments in Medjugorje's history. As the prayers continued, the light began to shift. The sky, once pale blue, turned golden, almost alive. For the people of Medjugorje, life had learned to flow between the ordinary and the extraordinary. They woke before dawn, worked their vineyards, and prayed before the same hills where visionaries once said they had seen the Virgin Mary standing in light. It had been nearly 3 decades since those first apparitions in 1981, when 6 children claimed to see a lady of radiant beauty on a stony hill. Their message was simple: peace, prayer, and conversion. Yet it spread across the world like fire through dry grass. Pilgrims came from every continent, carrying hope on their backs and pain in their hearts. Over time, thousands began to tell their own stories. Some said they felt a deep peace the moment they set foot in the village. Others said they smelled roses in the air where no roses grew. A few swore they had seen the sun dance in the sky, just as it had been described decades earlier at Fatima. The church remained cautious, never confirming the supernatural nature of what people saw there. But that never stopped the crowds. Faith, after all, doesn't wait for permission. By 2008, Medjugorje had become a river of prayer. Each day, people filled the Church of St. James, walked the path of the Stations of the Cross up Mount Kruiswijk, and watched the sunset with quiet reverence. Many hoped that, if they prayed hard enough, heaven might grant them a glimpse, just one sign that their faith was not in vain. Among them were those who had heard the old stories. They remembered how, in the early days, locals spoke about strange lights in the sky and suns that spun like wheels of fire. For years, those stories were whispered at dinner tables, printed in small devotional booklets, and passed from pilgrim to pilgrim like sacred secrets. But on February 24th, 2008, something changed. The prayers that morning felt unusually heavy, as if the air itself was listening. Some said the temperature shifted, Others said it was simply the silence, that deep, expectant kind of silence that comes before something holy. A few people began to look toward the sky. The sun was high, bright, almost blinding, yet somehow it didn't hurt to look at. Those who did said it felt soft, almost gentle, as if filtered through something unseen. No one knew that in just moments, the quiet devotion of that morning would turn into gasps, tears, and awe. The sky that had watched over Medjugorje for decades was about to write a new chapter in its mysterious story. And those who stood there that day, those who lifted their eyes toward the heavens, would remember it for the rest of their lives. No one could say exactly when it began. Some later said it started during the 4th decade of the Rosary. Others remembered a sudden hush, as if the entire hill had drawn in a single breath. A few people shaded their eyes for a moment, then looked again and didn't look away. Something about the light felt different, softer, almost alive. A woman near the front of the crowd gasped and pointed upward. Others turned, murmuring prayers under their breath. At first, no one dared to believe it. But as the seconds passed, more faces lifted toward the heavens. Some began to weep quietly. Others smiled through their tears, whispering, "She's here." The sky itself seemed to change. The light grew warmer, then brighter, and then something strange happened. It began to move. Slowly at first, as if breathing. A glow rippled through the air, bending and shifting around the sun. People stood frozen, their rosaries still in hand. Many later said they felt an indescribable peace, as though time had stopped. For others, it was overwhelming. They fell to their knees, crying out words of thanksgiving. The cameras came out next, phones, camcorders, whatever people could hold steady. Nobody wanted to blink. One young man whispered that the sun was spinning. Another said it pulsed like a heart, shining through colors that no lens could capture. Some saw shapes forming a cross, a ring of light, or a figure dressed in brilliance. Others saw nothing but light itself, yet felt something stir deep within. The air grew warm, then cool again, like waves of energy brushing across the crowd. And through it all, the light kept moving, as if something unseen was dancing behind it. Yet amid the awe and confusion, one thing stood out: the peace. Every person, from the children to the elderly, spoke of the same strange calm that filled the air. It wasn't the peace of silence, but the peace of presence, the sense that someone loving was near. What they didn't know was that a camera, somewhere among them, was recording everything. It would become one of the most discussed videos ever captured in Medjugorje footage that would later spread across the world under one name: The Miracle of the Sun, February 24th, 2008. It's a very low-quality video, but you can still see the shape very clearly.
Oddio! Ma...
Those who were there remember it vividly. Some said they saw a radiant host form within the light. Others said it felt like the heart of the sun was beating in rhythm with their own. A few closed their eyes and cried softly, convinced they were witnessing a sign from heaven. One pilgrim later wrote, "It was as though the Virgin was wrapping the world in her mantle of light. I couldn't stop weeping. I felt forgiven, loved, renewed." But if you thought you had seen it all, you haven't heard what happened here in 1987. Her name was Annika. She was 53 years old, a simple woman from a small village near Split, Croatia. For most of her life, she had lived in quiet obscurity, raising children, tending a small garden, and going to church every Sunday. But one day, the world she knew slipped into darkness. Years earlier, an infection had taken the sight in her right eye. Doctors treated her, prayed with her, and eventually told her the truth: her vision would never return. At first, she refused to believe it. She waited months, then years, for light to come back. It never did. The darkness remained, constant and merciless, a shadow that never left her. Yet Annika never stopped praying. Every night before sleep, she would touch her rosary and whisper, "Mother of God, if I cannot see the world again, at least let me see you." In the spring of 1987, her parish announced a pilgrimage to a small Bosnian town called Medjugorje. The name meant little to her then. She had only heard whispers that since 1981, 6 children claimed to see the Virgin Mary there. That people returned changed. That strange lights had been seen in the sky. Her friends insisted she join them. "Even if you don't see," they said, "you will feel." She hesitated. She didn't want pity or false hope. But something inside her stirred. Maybe curiosity, maybe faith. Maybe the voice she had been whispering to for years was whispering back. And so, on a humid June morning, she boarded a crowded bus with her parish group and began the long journey through winding Balkan roads. The trip was slow, the heat unbearable. Yet Annika never complained. She kept her hand on her rosary and prayed silently as the hills of Herzegovina came into view. When they arrived, Medjugorje was unlike anything she had imagined. A small church surrounded by vineyards and dirt paths. Pilgrims from Italy, Poland, and the Philippines. People kneeling in the dust, crying as they prayed. The air was thick with incense and song. Annika couldn't see it, but she felt it. She said later that she could sense the place was alive, that the ground itself seemed to breathe. The sound of rosaries clicking together filled the air like rain. There was peace there, but also something else: a tension, like the moment before lightning strikes. The group settled near Apparition Hill, where the visionaries had first seen the lady years before. They prayed in Croatian, their voices rising and falling with the wind. The afternoon sun burned fiercely overhead, and Annika sat quietly in its warmth. At one point, a child beside her whispered, "Mama, the sun is turning blue." A ripple of voices followed, excitement spreading through the crowd. Annika tilted her head, confused, feeling the heat of the sun on her skin. "What are they saying?" she asked. "Some people say the sun is moving," replied the woman next to her. "But maybe it's only the light." Annika smiled faintly. "Then I wish I could see it." For a moment, the crowd's noise faded into stillness. All she could hear was the soft rustle of wind and the echo of distant church bells. The heat pressed against her closed eyelids, and she felt a strange trembling in her chest. She later said it was as if something or someone was standing beside her. Then came the prayer that changed everything. She whispered it without thinking. "Mother of God, if I cannot see the world again, let me see the light of heaven just once." She didn't know why she prayed it that way. She only knew that as the last word left her lips, something inside her shifted. A pulse of warmth filled her blind eye, spreading backward like liquid fire. It didn't hurt, but it burned with power. Her hands began to shake. The woman beside her asked if she was all right. She tried to speak, but her throat closed. For the first time in years, she saw something aflicker, faint and golden, like sunlight pressing through fog. She gasped and opened both eyes. And though she could hardly believe it, she saw. Not clearly, not perfectly, but enough to see that the world was filled with light. At first, she thought it was a trick of memory, some echo of what light used to feel like. But the glow didn't fade. It pulsed, warm and alive, through the fog that had hidden the world for so many years. Annika froze. The shapes around her began to form in soft outlines. The folds of a shawl, a rosary swinging gently, the shadow of a child kneeling beside his mother. Her breath caught in her throat. She lifted her trembling hand in front of her face and could see the faint blur of her own fingers moving. A single tear slid down her cheek. "I can see something," she whispered. The woman beside her turned, confused. "What did you say?" Annika didn't answer. She raised her eyes toward the light and blinked. The sun was there, distant, round, impossibly bright, and yet she could look straight into it without pain. It seemed to tremble, then shimmer, then begin to move. Around her, people started murmuring. Some fell to their knees. Others pointed at the sky. "It's spinning," a voice shouted. "Look at the colors." Annika could see them. Gold melting into blue, blue turning into white, white exploding into waves of red. The sun danced across the sky like a living flame, every color bleeding into the next. It was beautiful, too beautiful. She pressed her hands to her face, half in terror, half in awe. "Dear God," she breathed, "I can see the sun." The woman beside her gasped. "Annika, what are you saying?" Her voice trembled. "It's the sun. It's moving. I can see it." Those around her turned, startled. Someone began to cry. Another whispered, "She's the blind woman from Split." A few crossed themselves, unable to speak. The light grew stronger. It wasn't blinding, it was alive. It seemed to reach down toward her, flooding her with warmth that wasn't of this world. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Everything faded except the burning heart of the sun and the stillness in her soul. She saw shapes forming inside the light circles, rays, something like a cross. Some said they saw the same. Others saw only brilliance. But Annika saw more. In the heart of the moving light, she saw a figure. A woman clothed in radiance, her head crowned with 12 stars. Her hands were open, as if pouring grace over the earth. Annika fell to her knees. The world blurred again as tears filled her eyes, but she didn't care. "Thank you," she cried. "Mother, I see you." For years, she had prayed to see the Virgin just once, and now she believed she had. The people around her were sobbing, some out of faith, others out of fear. The air shimmered with heat and prayer, and though the sun still moved, no one shielded their eyes. It was as if heaven itself had dimmed the light to let them look. When it finally stopped, a hush fell over the hill. The wind died. Even the birds seemed to pause. Annika remained kneeling, her head bowed, her face wet with tears. When she opened her eyes again, the world was brighter than she remembered, so bright that every color seemed alive. The brown of the earth, the blue of the sky, the silver of a crucifix hanging from someone's neck. For the first time in years, she saw faces. Real faces. She looked at the woman beside her and smiled weakly. "You're wearing blue," she said. The woman nodded, crying openly now. "Yes, you see me?" "I see everything," Annika whispered. The crowd erupted in murmurs and praise. Some began to pray aloud. Others embraced her. A few simply stared, unable to process what they had witnessed. But Annika stayed silent, her hands folded tight. She wasn't thinking about the miracle, or the people, or even her sight. In that moment, all she could think about was the warmth that still lingered in her chest, the certainty that she had seen something not of this earth. As the sun sank behind the hills, she whispered again, "I can see." not just with her eyes, but with something far deeper. Word spread through Medjugorje faster than the wind that evening. By sunset, everyone had heard about the blind woman who said she could see. Pilgrims who had been scattered across the fields came running to the small inn near the church where Annika was staying. Some wanted to pray with her, others simply wanted to look into her eyes. There was something about her calmness that drew people near. She sat quietly, rosary in hand, as strangers pressed close, whispering prayers and questions. A local priest arrived soon after. He had heard the commotion and came to see for himself. "My daughter," he said gently, "what is this people are saying about you?" Annika looked up. Her eyes were glistening, wide and full of light. "Father," she said, her voice trembling, "I saw the sun. I saw colors. I saw her." The priest studied her for a moment. "You were blind. For years. The doctors told me it was finished. But when the sun began to move, I felt something warm behind my eyes. And then, suddenly, I could see again. It was like waking up." The priest took her hands and prayed with her. He didn't ask for proof. He didn't need to. There was something undeniable in her expression: peace, wonder, and a humility that could not be faked. The next morning, her parish group brought her to a clinic in Mostar for an examination. The same doctors who had once declared her blind stared in disbelief as she read letters off a chart. Her right eye, the one that had been dead for years, now reacted to light. The retina was still scarred, but somehow she could see. They wrote the word "unexplained" in their report. Annika didn't argue or try to explain. When reporters later asked her how it happened, she only said, "I prayed to see the light of heaven, and heaven let me see the sun." Her story spread through the village quietly, carried from pilgrim to pilgrim, like a sacred secret. Some said it was proof that Medjugorje was holy ground. Others said it was just a coincidence, a strange recovery that happened to occur in the right place at the right time. But to those who knew her, it wasn't coincidence. It was grace. Weeks passed, and Annika returned home. Life resumed its rhythm: church, family, garden, prayer. But everything felt different. The light of the world seemed brighter now, and even the smallest things felt miraculous. The flicker of a candle, the glow of dawn through her window, the faces of her children. When her neighbors asked her what she saw that day, she would pause for a long moment before answering. "It wasn't only light," she said. "It was love. The kind of love that heals what doctors cannot touch." Years later, she was invited to speak briefly to a group of pilgrims visiting from Poland. She hesitated at first. She wasn't a preacher or a visionary, but she finally agreed. Standing before them, hands folded around her rosary, she said quietly, "I once lived in darkness. I prayed not for sight, but for peace. But when peace came, so did light. I think heaven wanted to show me that even blindness can become a door if you let God walk through it." Her words moved many to tears, not because she spoke with eloquence, but because she spoke with truth. For the rest of her life, Annika never claimed to be special. She didn't ask for attention or fame. She only repeated the same sentence whenever someone asked her about Medjugorje. "I saw the sun," she said. "But more than that, I saw the light that never sets." Years passed, and the story of the woman who saw the sun became part of Medjugorje's quiet memory. It was never announced from pulpits or printed in newspapers. It lived instead in whispers spoken softly between pilgrims as they climbed the rocky path to Apparition Hill. She was blind in one eye, some would say. She came with nothing but faith. Others would add, and she left seeing the sun. Her name was passed like a prayer, sometimes forgotten, sometimes remembered. But her story remained, woven into the larger mystery of that small village where the ordinary and the divine seemed to meet. For Annika, the miracle was never about sight alone. She often told her grandchildren that seeing the sun was just the beginning, that what truly changed her life wasn't what her eyes could do, but what her heart had learned. She said that after that day in Medjugorje, she could no longer see the world as before. Every sunrise felt sacred. Every shadow reminded her that light never truly leaves, it only hides for a while. She said that when she prayed, she could still feel the warmth behind her eyes, the same warmth that filled her when her vision returned. People asked her if she ever doubted what she saw. She smiled and said, "Doubt is a shadow, and light doesn't argue with shadows, it just shines." As the years went on, pilgrims continued to report strange lights in the sky, spinning suns, and inexplicable healings. Scientists came and left. Priests prayed and waited. But through it all, one truth stayed the same. Faith couldn't be measured, and the mysteries of Medjugorje couldn't be contained in explanations. Annika never tried to convince anyone. "If you believe," she would say, "you'll understand. And if you don't, no proof will be enough." Toward the end of her life, when her steps grew slow and her hands trembled, she returned to Medjugorje one last time. She climbed the hill with the help of her grandson, pausing often to catch her breath. The stones cut into her feet, and the wind bit her face, but she pressed on. When she reached the top, she looked out over the valley. The vineyards shimmered under the afternoon sun. Bells rang faintly in the distance. She took off her scarf, lifted her face, and smiled. "I see it," she whispered. "The same light. It never left." Her grandson, standing beside her, asked what she meant. She only placed her hand over his heart and said, "It's here." That night, she fell asleep peacefully, her rosary still wrapped around her fingers. Some say that when she passed, the sunlight that entered her window glowed brighter for a moment, as if saying farewell. Her story has never been officially recorded in church documents. No statement, no recognition, no decree, but it doesn't need one. For the people who walk the hills of Medjugorje, her story is already written on stones, on prayers, on hearts. Because not every miracle can be captured in photographs or proven with science. Some miracles happen in silence, in faith, in the private corners of the human soul, where heaven leaves its fingerprints. They say that every person who visits Medjugorje leaves changed in some way. Some see signs in the sky. Some find peace in confession. Some just feel lighter when they return home. And maybe that's what Annika's story was always about. Not the return of sight, but the discovery of something greater. That true vision begins where human eyes end. So if you ever find yourself standing under the same sun that shone over Medjugorje, remember her words, "I once was blind, but now I see." And perhaps in that quiet moment, you'll understand what she meant. That the greatest light is not the one above us, but the one that still burns within. Medjugorje has never asked the world to believe, it has only asked the world to listen. For more than 4 decades, its rocky hills have carried the footsteps of those searching for peace, for answers, for something the world can't give. Some arrive with doubts, others with desperate prayers. Yet all who come here are drawn by the same unseen voice, calling softly through the wind, "Come closer." In this small corner of Bosnia and Herzegovina, millions say they've felt heaven brush against the earth. They speak of lights in the sky, of conversions, of healings, of hearts renewed. But the truest miracles of Medjugorje are not the ones caught on camera. They are the ones that happen in silence, when someone forgives after years of pain, when a hardened heart begins to pray again, when a single tear becomes a prayer. Maybe that's why the Virgin is said to appear here. Not to display power, but to awaken love. Not to show wonders in the sky, but to remind the world that heaven is still near, waiting for the smallest spark of faith to open the door. For some, Medjugorje is mystery. For others, it's hope. But for all who walk its hills, there's a quiet understanding that even in the chaos of the modern world, grace has not stopped speaking. And perhaps that's the reason people keep coming back. Because somewhere beyond explanation, beyond proof and logic, they feel what words can't describe. The stillness of a place touched by eternity. So when the sun sets behind the cross on Mount Kruiswijk and the last light fades from the sky, remember, the miracles of Medjugorje are not just what people see. They are what people become after they've been here.